Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Shanerator, back with another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am excited for this episode for a few reasons. The first of which is because I just had these beautiful cherry Zip Fizz, and I'm just feeling pumped. Zip Fizz, please sponsor me. And the second reason stems from my different background. You might have noticed things look a little different because I moved into a new apartment, and that is the main reason why it's been like 7 or 8 months since I did the first video. I may or may not have mentioned it would have been a series. So anyways, the point of this series, but little did he know that it would not become a series. No, not right away. Which, in retrospect, wasn't the smartest thing to say, given I was just about to move out. But I'm back, baby! And the third reason I'm excited is because today's topic is going to be an interesting one. Let me give you a hint as to what it is. That's right, today's topic is going to be on the subject of money. Specifically on the different denominations of the American dollar. Now, where did the strange fascination with American money come from, you ask? I'm glad you asked. One of my previous jobs was as a server for Olive Garden, where I served. Minimum wage for service employees like servers was $3.40. Now, pretty much all of that was taxed, meaning that our livelihood was almost completely contingent upon tips. Now, during the time that I spent at Olive Garden, I saw a wide spectrum of tips, ranging from gospel tracts to $100 bills. And one of the most memorable tip experiences that I can recall didn't actually happen to me directly. It happened to my fellow server Madison, who received $10 on a check. And it wasn't one of these, it was 5 $2 bills. And they weren't just your average run-of-the-mill $2 bills. These were like fresh, hot off the press $2 bills. Crispy. But while I'm no stranger to $2 bills, it made me wonder what other rare bills are in circulation, or if there were any that were taken out of circulation. As I recall reading in like an almanac or somewhere that there was like a $500 bill. And that is a question that has been eating away at me for years. So I thought, what better opportunity than to research that together with you guys? So let's get started. And what better place to start the research than, as my supervisor used to say, the Googs. So to kick things off, I think we should you know, it's been a long time since the last video. If my search queries are related to the streaming software I'm currently using. In any case, let's see if there are bills that are larger than 100, which comes up as one of the suggested results. This topic is going to be a juicy one. Let's start with our friends at Wikipedia and see what comes up. So, there's a whole article dedicated to this. Large denomination currency banknotes with a face value of $500 or higher, confirming my prior recollections, as I recall reading in like an almanac or somewhere that there was like a $500 bill.
Score one for the Republic.
The first $500 note was issued by North Carolina, authorized by legislation dated May 10th, 1780. Virginia quickly followed suit and authorized the printing of $500, $1,000, and $2,000 notes about a year later. Listen, there are 3 constants when it comes to humanity. Number 1, gravity is a thing. Number 2, Peeps flavored Pepsi is universally disgusting. Number 3 is that number 1 shouldn't apply to Pepsi Peep soda, so that they fly off into the atmosphere so that no one has to try this debacle. And number 4 is that there's always some sort of competition between us and our peers. North Carolina be like, oh, check us out. Yo, you think $100 is big? We got them $500 bills. And then Virginia be like, you think that's cool? $500? That's nothing. We got them $1,000 and $2,000 notes. Deuces, North Carolina. Thanks for coming to my How Governments Work podcast. It's interesting to me that North Carolina issued the first $500 bill and that Virginia followed right after, not even a year later. Now that is quick turnaround time. And here I am waiting my whole life for the government to make Mac and Cheese Day a national holiday. Where are your priorities, Congress? In total, 11 different types of US currency were issued in high denomination notes across nearly 20 different series dates. The next section goes on to talk about how in 1934 gold certificates were issued in denominations of $100, $1,000, $10,000, and $100,000. Can you imagine just like setting a down payment on a house with $100,000 bills? Now, I don't know a lot about US currency and denominations, clearly, since we're doing this video, but hear me out. how much paperwork and time could you save if you just laid down a few $100,000 bills to buy a house versus having to apply for a mortgage? Although I guess you would need to be rich to be able to afford 3 $100,000 bills to lay down in the first place. But still, my point still stands. It would also be terrible if these transactions were conducted outside and a random gust of wind came and just blew one of those $100,000 bills up in the air. So there's probably a reason why we have smaller denomination bills, which reminds me of a subtopic for money. What happens when a natural disaster destroys your legal tender bills? Because I seem to recall, by drawing from my recollections from like 15 years ago, flawless recollections, that if your money was like destroyed by, say, a massive house fire or something, that you could take the debris or ashes and turn them into like a local government institution, and that they would actually compensate you and give you new bills based on the evidence that you bring forward in the form of the debris. And along those lines, if you have a bill that is like torn or something, if you have at least 50% of it, that you could actually still buy stuff. So in theory, if we were to take a $1 bill and cut it right in half, couldn't we use them as 2 $1 bills since we have at least 50% of each one? I'm guessing not. But let's find out. So this Q&A on Quora asks, if you cut a bill in half and give it to the bank, would they accept it as half the currency? And then Jerry Williams, country boy, hunter, hiker, wilderness camper that grew up in the mountains of V, says that you need the dead president's face. The $5 cut exactly in half will have Abe's face on one half, and that half can be used. So Jerry Williams, country boy, hunter, hiker, wilderness camper, and resident of the mountains of V, claims that it depends on the bill and where it's cut, as the president's face is like oriented differently depending on the bill that you have. Obviously, this is just one dude's opinion on some forum online, but because he is country boy, hunter, hiker, wilderness camper, and resident of the mountains of V, I'm tempted to think he has some credibility. But because we are professional investigators, let's look for a more official answer. So money.com, which on the scale of unofficial to official feels like it's more on the official side, asks, can I still use cash if it's torn? And then goes on to answer a few hypotheticals. So if there's a corner missing of your bill, then you can still use the cash, which makes sense. You can also tape together 2 ripped pieces, take them to a bank, and if they can identify the serial number, then you can exchange it for a whole new bill. But for more severe damage, you will need to submit your bills to the Mutilated Currency Division. Now that sounds like a dope place to work. Just remember, boys and girls, if you go to tell your father that you want to be part of the Mutilated Currency Division, make sure you remember the operative word currency in that phrase, because the Mutilated Division does not sound as legal as the Mutilated Currency Division. Big difference. But obviously, since it's hyperlinked, we have to click on it classic rabbit hole style. So it looks like the Mutilated Currency Division provides a free service to those that have money that got messed up to some extent. And it sounds like each year, the division receives 22,000 requests for examination on mutilated currency each year. That's wild. Now, in all seriousness, the vast majority of this money submitted is probably at least $20 in denomination. But come on, there's gotta be at least someone that submitted a $1 bill that was messed up asking for examination. I mean, it is a free service. For And obviously there are some parameters that have to be fulfilled in order for the division to say that your money is justified in being redeemed. The first criteria that has to be met states that clearly more than 50% of a note has to be identified as United States currency, as well as any sufficient remnants of any relevant security feature, which I imagine would be like the serial number or the aforementioned like eye of the president, as our friend Jerry Williams claims. But the second criteria is more interesting to me. It states that 50% or less of a note identifiable as United States currency is present, and that the method of mutilation and supporting blah blah blah. The Cliff Notes version is that if you submit less than half of a bill to the Mutilated Currency Division, then they have to look at the surrounding evidence to determine if you get compensation. And whenever there's questions like this, I always think to the extreme. Like if I had, say, 3% of a bill, and I can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a vicious beast ate most of my money, would that be suitable for compensation? You just gotta wonder where the threshold is. Although maybe it's not wise to push the envelope for the Mutilated Currency Division, as I myself have no desire to be submitted to the Mutilated Body Division. Lordy, where were we going with this? Ah, yes. We were looking at large denominations of the dollar. Hey, this series is called Down the Rabbit Hole for a reason. No refunds, no exchanges. Unless, of course, you have at least 50% of your bill. Now, going further, in the Wikipedia article, it sounds like that those high denomination bills are actually still legal tender in the United States. The big caveat, of course, is that they were last printed in 1945. So the chances of getting these as a tip at Olive Garden are pretty darn low. And it looks like they were officially discontinued on July 14th, 1969, due to lack of use. I can't imagine why that would be. And going further on, the Federal Reserve destroys large bills, which makes total sense if they're trying to keep the denomination $100 or below. And then as of January 14, 2020, only 336 $10,000 bills were known to exist, along with 342 remaining $5,000 bills and over 160,000 remaining $1,000 bills. So is there like a census for high denomination bills or something? How they landed on that exact number is beyond me. But because they still exist, I wonder if we can buy them right now. Let's do a quick eBay search and see what comes up for some of these higher denomination bills. All right, let's see. Reproduction. That's not what we want. Ah, look at that. The second listing shows a $500 bill from San Francisco priced at $1,075 with almost 3 days left in the listing. That's rad. So these are actually still able to be bought today. And if you were to buy this $500 bill for $1,000, the ROI wouldn't be great. We're talking 0.5 to 1. But the look you get when paying for your lunch buffet with this bill, priceless. And then if we go through other listings here, we can see that there's an actual grading system, it looks like, for at least one of these. The PMG, which is paper money guarantee, actually grades these on a scale. That's really interesting. I had no idea that that existed. One thing that's interesting about this listing is the fact that it highlights Chicago as the city of origin for this note versus San Francisco for the first one we looked at, which makes me wonder if there is like a more valuable bill depending on which city it's from. Like, I wonder if the bill from St. Paul is worth 5,000% more than the one from Richmond for whatever reason. And there is one way to verify. We can look at the sold listings and see what the average sell price is. Holy tamales. These sell for a lot of moolah. The range of these being sold varies anywhere from frickin' $1,500 all the way to $4,000. So it may not be worth as much as Bitcoin, but it still is a worthwhile investment if you can score yourself a few $500 bills. Okay, let's look at one more, which is the $10,000 bill. That is the one I'm most curious about, as that is the one that I think is still legal tender. So no big surprise here. There's a lot of duplicates, and some that for some reason I question are legal tender or not. But we can always look at sold items and see what we come up with. Ended highest first. I'm not seeing it. Maybe eBay isn't the place for selling $10,000 bills. Black market contraband? Confirmed. And to bring this Wikipedia article home, it sounds like these large bills were predominantly used by banks, and that the introduction of electronic money has made these obsolete, especially amid concerns of like counterfeiting and money laundering and things along that nature. So that makes total sense. It looks like the three big ones were the $1,000, the $5,000, and the $10,000 bills, and that like the $100,000 gold certificate was utilized for like a more proprietary approach. Now that is fascinating information on large denomination bills. Say that 3 times fast. But I'd love to learn a little more about the bills themselves, like what presidents were on them and why. So we already know about the $2 bill, which has Thomas Jefferson, and based off this Resource Center article from the US Department of the Treasury, $2 bills are still being printed to date by the Federal Reserve, just not as often as the other bills. Hence the reason why we can't find them as often in circulation. And the key word in that statement is the word request. So the implication is that requests are being made for the $2 bill. I imagine the requisition conversation goes something like this. Hey Bill. Hey Dad. It's that time of the month again. What are you up to? Just closing up the bank. Been a long month. Well, you know, it's that time of the month. What time? What time of the month? You know, where you put in your request for money at the Department of Treasury. Are you implying something about me? No, Bill. It's that time of the month where you put in a request for money here at the Federal Reserve. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So, what do you need? So Ted, I was looking through all the money. Yes. And it seems to me that we are abysmally short. Get to the point, Bill. We need $2 bills. $2 bills? Yeah, we spent our $100 bills. Those went really quick. Well, first of all, your use of the phrase spent it all is concerning since you work at a bank. So we'll put a pin in that and circle back. But the second thing is $2 bills. They're not easy to come by. I know, man, but we need them. Bill, I work for the government. Be serious. Ted, Sirius is my middle name. And Sirius is my favorite character in Harry Potter. I need $2 bills. Ted, please. Okay. Calm down. I'll see what I can do. How many do you need? Like, a lot. Okay, but you owe me big time. And Bill. Yeah? What were those $100 bills used on? Bouncy houses. You know, to lift company morale. Okay, so that's enough on the $2 bill. And it says here that the last $500 bill rolled off the presses in 1945 and was formally discontinued 24 years later in 1969, which we gleaned from the Wikipedia paragraph earlier. And then it highlights here that the bill is still legal tender in the United States. That being said, should you come into possession of a $500 bill, you'd find that its market value far exceeds its face value, commanding upward of a 40% premium on the open market. False. We know from looking at eBay that these bills can go for way more than 40%. Times have changed. And then we go to the $1,000 bill, which features Grover Cleveland, which personally is my favorite president, given he is the first and only one to be named after a Sesame Street character. But the most interesting tidbit of information besides that is the fact that Alexander Hamilton was actually supposed to be featured on this bill, meaning that in addition to being featured on the $10 bill, he was in the running to also be featured on the $1,000 bill. But due to the fact it might be a little confusing to some people, replaced him with Grover Cleveland. And then we see for the aforementioned $5,000 bill, James Madison is the face, and that Richard Nixon was one to recall them due to fear of criminals using them for money laundering activities. Ironic, given that this is coming from the guy that laundered information leading to his impeachment. And then, of course, the most familiar face of them all, Salmon P. Chase, the face of the $10,000 bill. Can't say I'm too familiar with this guy. Also, more importantly, who looks at their newborn child and says, you know what we should name him? We should name him after your favorite fish. Halibut? No. Your second favorite. Oh, salmon? Yes. That's a great idea. I know. I love you. Come here, tuna. And then lastly on this list, we have the $100,000 bill, which was basically a banknote only for their proprietary purposes. And another fun fact about the $100,000 bill is that it was created in response to the Great Depression. Our whole economy is crashing. What do we do? Print more money. Well, that is all the time I had for today, but hopefully you learned a thing or two about big bills. I know I did. Now, if there was a key takeaway, it's that if you have messed up money of any kind, go ahead and submit it to the Mutilated Currency Division. It's free. Why wouldn't you do it? Well, maybe not exactly free. I'm sure being a government service, that's where our tax dollars go to, but you get the point. Go ahead and use it and see if they compensate you for your messed up bill. Making sure, of course, to provide accurate reasoning and evidence for why the bills were destroyed in the first place. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys all next time.